This is absolute insanity. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the channel. Look at this. This is literally just before the major order was completed, before 2 billion Terminids were killed. 2 billion. There were 6 days to complete this major order. This major order was essentially completed in around 10 hours. Like, what the actual hell was going on? That is actually insane. Look at this. This comes from the official X account of Helldivers. 2 billion bugs dead in less than a day. Helldivers, Terminid planets run red with liberty thanks to this inspiring display of preemptive self-defense. I love this game. It's so good. Your designated loved one, relative, pet, neighbor on Super Earth has been informed of your bravery. And you can see on this image, 5 days and 21 hours, literally as the order went live. It was basically a 6-day order. So I think about 10, 12, 13, 14 hours or so, and 2 billion bugs were killed. I mean, that is actually just crazy. They should have put 20 billion in. That would have made more sense. It's like, what? This is actually crazy. Now, at the moment, or well, as of recording this video, there is no new major order. However, it does beg the question, doesn't it? Are we going to be sent back to the bot front, or is something going to happen with the TCS and the bugs are going to come back? Because if we're sort of looking at the history of the major order so far, they generally always start with a massive assault like the Helldivers, a preemptive self-defense mission, and then there is a massive pushback from the enemy. We've seen this with the bots. Are we going to see this with the bugs now? Because the bugs are absolutely being annihilated. Will they push us back? The bots have retreated to go and, you know, remuster their forces and come back again against us. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see. But yeah, I will say this, though. It was actually quite refreshing to have a major order where it was just straight up kill stuff. It wasn't, I guess you could say all the other major orders before were basically the same thing, go and liberate planets. This one, though, was very different, and that's pretty cool. The debate around content versus bug fixing, it is massive at the moment in Helldivers 2. The CEO has actually responded to a Reddit post in which he actually responds twice, and he gives us a bit more insight into why they're doing the things that they're doing. Now, if you guys have been watching any of my recent videos, a lot of this will make sense. You know, they've got this problem where they need to keep content coming, but they also need to fix bugs, but they can't do both, but they're trying to do both. And yeah, it's a problem, and we're going to have to wait and see how this changes. But this is what the CEO says. Now, this is in response to a Reddit post. There is a link in the video description below to all of the source material with the title, "This sub is riding the fine line between constructive input and whiny entitlement." And essentially, the TLDR of that post is, a lot of people in here need a reality check. Your opinion on the game and what it needs, where the devs' priorities need to be, or how the game should function are not nearly as important as you've convinced yourself it is. If the current state of the game is bothering you this deeply, go and do something else for a bit. For the majority of us, this game is still an incredible experience, despite the flaws that it has. Now, with that being said, the CEO then says this: "I appreciate your sentiment and post. Let me add some context. Arrowhead is independently owned by people working at the studio and not swayed by shareholders in the traditional sense. Of course, we are in a great partnership with Sony where we agree on targets to hit, etc., but there isn't a forcing function or requirement per se. We want to deliver the best in the industry, and we are calibrating our efforts of fixing versus new stuff. It's easy to just say, just fix, don't add. But the reality of the competitiveness in this industry is that we have to do both to stay relevant. We are figuring it out. The demands and expectations on the studio is high. All eyes are on us, and we have a sole purpose: to make this the best live game you've ever played. We just need to find our stride and balance. It's a hot topic at the studio, and I'm sorry for the sloppy mistakes we've made as of recent." Now, this is a great post. Again, they are really killing it with this level of communication. They are, you know, they are very open, but they're also open in a very down-to-earth way. This doesn't, I mean, these are not PR washed responses. You can see this is just literally the CEO dropping a post, and this is what they're working on, and that's the way he speaks, and it all feels very normal and down-to-earth. It's not some over-the-top PR washed post which, you know, has to say specific things and because of this and because of that and all that crap. I mean, you can see in this statement here where it was straight up like, you know, this is the studio is owned by the developers who are working there. There isn't some sort of, you know, money men above them going, you need to do this, you need to do that. They've got a publishing partnership with Sony, and they've agreed to do certain targets. Now, we don't know what these targets are, and they obviously are never going to tell us because that would be confidential information. But that probably does include, if I was to bet money on it, things like, a war bond a month is probably included in that. Or at least, maybe not a war bond a month, but a commitment to do a certain number of updates a year. Maybe some sort of thing like that will most likely be in it. Because obviously Sony want the game to do well. They're not just going to, give publishing support to the game and then just let the game fade away. They want to see a return on whatever their investment is. So you can understand that. But yeah, I do think this is it's a really good response. But there's actually another response as well. And I think before we get onto that, I suppose we should highlight this thing where he's saying they need to find their balance. And we do know that from comments from the community managers, they're obviously finding it difficult to produce content and balance content and then also fix content. Comments like there's only so many hours in the day, there's only so many people on the team and all of this stuff. It's a problem and it's a bottleneck and it's something they do really need to sort out because, like the CEO says, if they don't actually fix this, they will start losing relevancy because if you're not adding new content, players will fade away. If you're not fixing problems, players will fade away. And, we all talk about the honeymoon period of this game. Like, we're still in it. We're still definitely in that because the game is still incredible. Like, when you're playing the game, it's insane. Everything that's happening is crazy. I say this with the best will in the world, it almost masks the issues with the game a lot of the time. If something's a little bit buggy, it don't matter because there's a massive, crazy explosion going off and tons of Terminids rushing you down and you just kind of forget. So they do kind of have that on their side. And also, it is a really good game. So that does really help. Anyway, there is another comment. So let's break that down. This user is the OP of the post and actually comes in and responds and says this to Johan. That's pretty much where my assumption was based on the insights we got regarding where the team puts their time and how that decision was made. Anyone who works in the business field understands that there are certain expectations between a parent company and those working with it. I think I may not have fleshed that point out well enough, and if I misrepresented you guys in doing so, I sincerely apologise. It wasn't meant as an Arrowhead cares more about the shareholders than the customer remark, just that when dealing with large corporate publishers like Sony, there are expectations that need to be satisfied. So sidelining the war bond schedule isn't something you guys can simply decide. Thank you for taking the time to clear things up. I removed the bit about shareholders to more accurately reflect your situation. And Johan responds to this and says, hey, that's very nice of you, but please do not see this as a defensive post. I know we can do better as a studio. Also, my intention was to just say that the games industry is a complicated beast. We need to stay relevant and keep everyone entertained while fixing stuff. The expectations from our friends at PlayStation are pretty simple. Make great game. For players, we trust you. Nobody is forcing us, but at the same time, the pressure is real. It's very abstract. All love. And it sums it up, doesn't it? Because it is. You got to think about Arrowhead. They were a fairly small studio in the grand scheme of things. They had games made in the past. Like Magica was crazy. It was amazing. I think that was through Paradox as the publisher, though. Then they had Magica 2, didn't they? A bunch of other games. They basically made Helldivers. It was still sort of using that Magica formula. Funny, friendly fire, but also this time we were in space. Top-down view again. And then they made Helldivers 2, which is this massive, quantum leap forward of the Helldivers franchise and of live service games, given the way that they've very cleverly updated the whole thing with the, Joel and the Galactic War, which is from like a D&D campaign in a lot of ways, and it's fluid, it updates, it's really cool, right? So they're killing it with that. But what has happened is, whatever expectations they had, maybe they thought, well, we might get 20,000 players or something like that. It absolutely is exploded. And the game has sold millions and millions and millions of copies. They've got massive player base and everything is just amplified. So if you had a smaller player base, it might be easier and a bit more forgiving to just be like, oh, well, actually, we can take our time fixing bug fixes. That's fine. We can take our time adding new content. It doesn't matter if this doesn't work at launch because we can fix it. But as the audience gets bigger, everything gets amplified. You get a lot of, even me, right? So YouTubers, you get more YouTubers making content. TikTok creators, you get more articles being written about the game from gaming media, press, people are talking about it. Everything is amplified. And this is a really good place to be because it means that your game is doing really, really well. And the developers, and this is the worry, is they don't want that to go because when that goes, you never really get that back. You always need people to be interested in your game, whether, things are going wrong or things are going right. But if they become apathetic, then that's the problem because then suddenly they don't care about your game and it is very hard to get them to care again. So this is a difficult situation for the devs. Be under no illusions here, guys. It is super difficult. They need new content. They also need to fix broken content because you don't want to buy stuff and then find out it doesn't work. which is happening in the game right now. And the best example of that is the tier 4 ship module for the ammo for support weapons, where it fully reloads them on a supply drop. That's incredible, but it doesn't work unless you log out of the game, and then sometimes it works, and then other times it doesn't work, and it's been confirmed as broken and confirmed as partially broken. We don't really know what the state of it is, but basically it doesn't work, you know. So if you've put a lot of time into that and you've got the samples together and unlocked it and it doesn't work, okay, that's going to piss you off, right? But you might just forget it and think, okay, they're going to fix it. They are going to fix it, but it's a couple of weeks you've got to deal with not having a fix in place for that. That only washes for so long, and eventually players will get really miffed. There are some problems that would be highly amplified, though. If you think of a new weapon, so if you get a new war bond, premium war bond, let's say, so players invest either their own money to buy the war bond, or they invest the super credits they've got through playing the game a ton, or maybe they farmed before some of the farming changes came in. But basically, they then unlock a weapon and the weapon doesn't work. That feels really bad. And you're like, well, this is terrible. You know, and this has happened sometimes with the war bonds we've had already. And we've also had things like armor just not working and then having to be fixed, armor with the wrong effects on and stuff like that. So these are little niggly issues which over time will get amplified. So they do really need to get into a good sort of rhythm of dealing with that stuff, while also continuing to add new content, while also keeping the game fresh and interesting. And we do know from looking at the poll in Discord that was up from a couple of days ago, most people actually want new mission types, new planets, new mission objectives. They want new content, and the devs know this, right? Again, I've got to drill this into you guys. I'm drilling it into myself as well. We are not like indicative of the wider community of this game or of any game. Anyone sitting there watching tons of YouTube content, taking part in Reddit, active on Twitter or X and all of that stuff. And I generally, I sort of class that as shoulder content. Anyone who consumes shoulder content of the game they play on, so additional content that's made by the community or other sources, they are hyper engaged. But most players simply don't. Most players are just like, I want to play Helldivers today. I'll turn it on. What do I see? Well, it's still the same like planets and mission types. I'm getting a little bit boring. Oh, look, there's a load of new weapons. This is cool. This is great. Oh, there's new mission types. Oh, wow, this is cool. This is great. You've seen it from my gameplay on this channel. I get super pumped when there's like a new mission type that extract what is it? Extract I forget what it's called. High value personnel, the Helldiver rescue mission. Basically, that is insane. It's by far the best mission. It's so good. Like, there's just tons of killing that goes on. It's so good. And you get that Starship Troopers fantasy against the bugs. They are awesome. And that they know that. The devs know this, right? And they need to keep those people happy, because the hardcore will always be the hardcore and will always be engaged regardless of whatever, you know, player base any game has. And the devs have obviously had massive success with this game, and they want to keep the game growing. They want to keep everybody interested. Because, you know, I guess to end the video, I can just sort of simply say this. When you look at a community, you could be very base and say, actually, there is the hardcore and the non-hardcore. The hardcore will always play regardless of what you do, and they will moan about what you do all the time. That's fine, because it means they're engaged. But then the casual, they will only play if they're actually having fun or there's new things in the game. And if there isn't, they float onto whatever the next flavor of the month is. And that's the danger. Because Arrowhead have got a real, very strong chance here to capture players who are frustrated with other live service games just because of the way they're delivering their live service game. Whether that, you know, is games like Overwatch or Destiny, anything that's live service game, Apex, stuff like that. This game is almost servicing those players who are a bit disgruntled from those other games. So it is interesting to see where this will go in the future. All right, guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below, and I'll catch you lot on the next video. See you soon.